Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an episode of Career Mode. I hope you're all doing well, and it's either this episode or maybe it's the next one that we have the transfer window. No, it's this one. As you guys can see, we have Sunderland, and then we kick off the transfer window, and we've spoken a whole lot about what sort of players we want to bring in, and just that sort of thing, where we need to rearrange the team. Now, the January transfer window isn't exactly the best one, it's not that good because you don't have a lot of time to really negotiate. You don't have a lot of time to think through some players, and most importantly, a lot of the times, if the transfer window is longer, there's a more chance of, these big drama stories happening, of these big players actually wanting to leave their club, whereas in January, players are a lot more reluctant to leave their club, I should say, so you end up having to pay a little bit more, but, we actually have no money. We're pretty broke at the moment, and I went to the board and I was like, can I please have some money? I have no money. I want to buy players, and so I said I'd qualify for the Champions League, and, I asked for, I think it was 15 million in the end, and I thought that was kind of ambitious, but at the same time, 50 million these days really isn't that much. You might be able to pick up 2 solid players for that sort of money, or maybe 1 really good player, so I figured, 50 million would be good, and if I'm offering, a Champions League spot, you'd figure that would almost be worth it. So I sent over a request for more moolah, as my wallet was a little bit thin, and I really did need some funds. A game against Sunderland on the very first day of the transfer window, so obviously I couldn't really do much in the transfer window until I had to play a game, so we had to get this out the way before we could do any sort of negotiating. Now, in career mode, transfer window is by far the best time of the entire window, for me anyways. Also towards the end of the season, where you start to, come down to the title races, or, a race for 4th place, things like that. That's always really exciting. But for some reason, I just seem to enjoy the transfer window, messing around with the team, playing around with the team, seeing what sort of deals you can get, whether, clubs come in with ridiculously high offers for certain players, that sort of thing. So, yeah, a game against Sunderland, and in this game, I was actually slightly distracted. I wasn't really paying too much attention, which I suppose was a little bit of my fault, but, I wasn't playing to the best of my ability. Some really unlucky rebounds there, kept going to the defender, and as you can see, my guy just stood there, and that was actually because I wasn't even paying attention to the game, and I felt a little bit bad there, but I just claimed that my player was being lazy, and we'll just run with that story instead. But yeah, Sunderland 1-0 up, and it was already quite late into the game. I wasn't playing my best, and it just didn't look like too much was going to happen, and Sunderland, they can either be one of those teams that turn up and play magnificently, or turn up and play like utter crap. This was one of the days where they actually played a little bit better, and again, one of those bounces where it just lands into the attacking player's run, and a poor clearance, if you will, but like I said, it comes off one of my defender's thighs and just goes straight into his path, and those are the sort of things you just really can't deal with, I suppose. Just not too much you can do about it. But late into the game, in the 90th minute, Asaidi there manages to fire one into the top right. Unfortunately, it was nothing more than a consolation goal, but it just, goes to prove my theory. Whenever he's on the ball and he's in and around the box and he takes a shot, he will get it on target, if not score. He's got such a great ability to finish, and it's definitely helped out the team in quite a few times. Not to mention, he does make some good runs, but I mentioned in previous videos that he doesn't always get on the ball enough, in my opinion. But as expected, Aubameyang there, brings in some interest. A 15.5 million bid from Porto. He's obviously really attracted the eye of some big clubs. And for me, I just wasn't in any position to sell him. I don't want to become one of those clubs that is constantly rotating teams. I don't want to, as harsh as this may sound, I don't want to become a club like Benfica, for example. There's quite a few Portuguese sides that really, they develop some of the best talent in the world, but they never really hold on to him because they get such great money from other clubs, and they don't really excel their own club in a certain way. I'm sure if clubs like Benfica or Sporting Lisbon or teams like that, if they held on to their players, they would just be amazing teams. But like I said, they create some of the best talent, and they just go on to sell them, because a lot of the players in those particular leagues, they want to look elsewhere. And although they, don't get me wrong, I'm not sort of battering down on any of the Portuguese clubs, because they do play some of the most fantastic football, but they just create the best talent, and it just naturally happens that they tend to go to other clubs in some slightly more competitive leagues, like the La Liga, like the Premier League, and things like that. So I didn't want to become a, if you will, feeder club, clubs that create the talent and then just sell them on. I really wanted to excel Liverpool. I really wanted to get into a Champions League spot, and we were still waiting to see back from anyone if we were gonna get that 15 million from the from the board, and I think they came back and they said something like 2.2 million, and to me 2.2 million really isn't going to make much of a difference, you know, to promise the board that I'll get them Champions League football, and in return I get 2.2 million, you know, it just wasn't going to make the difference. You know, I need a lot more money than that, so I actually rejected that offer, as it just wouldn't really cut it for me. So as you guys may have seen, I was kind of scrolling through the left backs there. I'm really interested in picking up a left back. Unfortunately, Massey there, one of the centre backs, I've had my eye on ever since the start of QPR. He's unfortunately on loan at the moment, but I know as soon as he's out on loan, I'm going to try and pick him up. And Bayern Munich there come in for a 13 million bid for Aubameyang. Fulham come in with an offer for Akinfeev. Akinfeev is actually a player, if there's one player I'm actually willing to sell, it would probably be him. Just because I know he's got 85 overall, and I think we picked him up when he had an 83 or an 82, something like that. He just really hasn't lived up to the expectations, and there's been a lot of shouts in the comments saying, you know, I think he has been a bit of a flop at the club, and we just, you know, we wouldn't mind seeing him go. So for that reason, I put over some reasonable counter offers, ones that I'd be willing to sell him at, and we'd just be interesting to see if any of them get back to me, really. And another one comes in here from Napoli there for 7.5 million, and I really did want to, if I was going to sell him, I wanted to get some good money for him, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. I didn't want to sell him for pennies or anything along those lines, because, you know, he's done all right. He's made some really basic errors, and some errors that really cost me, but for that reason, you know, I'm not going to hold it against him, and it's obvious that he's attracted some attention from some other clubs, so he can't be doing too poorly. Anyways, I decided to simulate this game against Sheffield Wednesday, one, because I knew it was at home, and whenever you simulate a home game, things tend to go a lot more in your favor, and two, it was during the transfer window, so I'm always a lot more excited, and I don't really want to play as many games in the transfer window. I just want to see what that next advance is going to say. Am I going to get a really big transfer offer from a club? Is a player going to sell? You know, that sort of thing. So for that reason, I admit, you know, I kind of cheated a little bit, but it was against Sheffield Wednesday, so I'm sure the game wouldn't have been too important. But we did only win 1-0, which I was kind of surprised about. I honestly thought we'd do a little bit better than that, but that's just the way it ended up going, and a win's a win, and we move on to the next round of the FA Cup. If you guys remember correctly, I was actually knocked out of the Carling Cup by Manchester United, and sorry, Manchester City, my bad. Napoli there matched my 14 million bid, and Real Madrid actually came in and offered, and I know Real Madrid just spend big money, so that's why I decided to counter offer for 15.5 million just to see what would happen. But as you guys can see, one of the you know, Napoli accepted that 40 million, so it'll be interesting to see if he ends up going over there, and if he does, then fair play to him, but it will mean we need to look at another goalkeeper. So as always, guys, leave your comments down below for any keeper that you think I should go and try and pick up. I hope you have all had a cracking day, and I'll see you all in a little bit. Bye bye, guys.